Johnson, and this is Focus on Liberia. Hit it! From Cape Mount to Cape Palmas, mountain back to Atlantic Ocean, Obomi Hills to Pokonjre, to educate, elevate, and promote. Yeah, focus on Liberia. For Liberia, Liberia. For Liberia, yeah. From Monday to Sunday. From Monday to Sunday. It's focus on Liberia. Talk about home affairs. Hey. In diaspora. Current affairs. Reliable information. History. Talking about culture. Politics. Education. Entertainment. Business. Sports. Advertisement. Articulation. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. Focus on Liberia. From Monday to Sunday. Focus on.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Focus on Liberia. This is FOL Marketplace, the place we talk about business, finance, economics, and everything in between. Tonight, we turn our attention or our lens on the numbers, not just any numbers. We are examining Liberia's fiscal year 2026 draft national budget, a US $1.211 billion plan that claims to reflect the priorities of the arrest agenda: agriculture, roads, rule of law, education, sanitation, and tourism. But behind the figures lie deeper questions. Is this budget realistic? Is it inclusive? And will it deliver the change Liberians have been waiting for? Well, to help unpack all this, we're joined by a distinguished panel of financial gurus, diplomats, and political pundits. Let me welcome the head of the FOL Marketplace team, Gabriel Tabito Carter. Gabriel, welcome to the show.
Dennis, thank you for having me. It's good to be back. I took a hiatus for a little bit, but I'm glad to be back to talk about the budget. There's a lot to unpack. Hopefully we won't be able to do everything tonight, but hopefully we can peel away and get to the meat of this budget and make at least sense of what's in it. But it's good to be back and good to having a discussion here.
Welcome, Gabriel Carter. Let me also welcome Mr. Jimmy Eastman, our man from the nation's capital, whose name is synonymous to diplomacy. Welcome, Jimmy.
Hey, Ja, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And Gabriel, it's good to have you back. When you and Larry back on the team, it makes it strong. So y'all keep on bolstering up the team. But thank you, Dennis. I'm glad to be here to make a contribution.
Thank you. We want to welcome all our viewers from across the globe. If you have not done so already, please tag someone, share the show, and let's get started. Well, tonight, just Gabriel, like you said, we're gonna like, this is an introduction. The budget is a huge document, and it's gonna take us some time, to go through it. But let me start with this. Let's start with your first impression. What stands out to you in this draft budget, and does it reflect the realities on the ground? I know we're going to talk a lot. Let me start with Jimmy on this one. What's the first thing that stands out to you in this budget?
Okay, thanks. So the first thing is the total envelope.
Yeah.
It's a 1.211 billion. That's about 38% increase from the year 2025. I think that is substantial. But when I look at deep into it,
Yep.
the jump leans heavily on one-offs and contingent revenue. Contingent revenue, they say, well, we propose this like asset recovery, but we're not sure of it. Also, as the 200 million ArcelorMittal signature bonus is part of that. So it's not it's not something you can repeat. So though we see a significant jump, it doesn't appear to be a reflection of the actuality of
Yeah.
a growth in the economy.
Thank you. Let me go to Gabriel. Gabriel, same question. Your first impression, what's stand out to you?
Yeah, it's similar to Jimmy when I saw the budget, the 1.2 billion. I too was excited. Hey, this is a milestone. Coming from a budget that was below $1 billion to now where we didn't just jump, but we jumped 38% over the previous years. That was an excitement, right? But with the excitement, you tend to be a little bit skeptical, and that skepticism drives you to go dig a little deeper into the budget, right? I think we get a little bit excited when we see the numbers, and this is exactly what we're here for. Yes, you're looking at the number, but we want to peel back the layers to really look at what contributed to that, 1.2 billion. So for me, basically what Jimmy said, the first thing that stood out was this huge ArcelorMittal sign-on bonus. Sign-on bonus, for those of you who get jobs and you get sign-on bonus, is a one-off thing. It's when your next time, you're not getting it next year, right? So it's a one-off thing. So if you peeled away that 200 million sign-on bonus, that leaves you with just 1 billion. Right? Because we're at 1.2. So you take away the 200 million, that leaves you with just 1 billion, right? And then there's also
Which is
contingency.
still huge.
Contingency meaning there is really not there is contingency. It is contingent upon certain milestone or certain things being done in order to get that amount, right? So again, you can classify that also as one-offs, right? It won't be repeated come next year, right? So when you peel away those one-offs and contingencies, and you get to the core revenue, like we call it, which is the base revenue collected from taxes, it paints the same picture as the previous years. So I think we got a little bit excited, myself included, but as you dig a little deeper, you realize there are, not inflation, but things that we shouldn't be excited about because these things will not be repeated. So that was my initial, thoughts.
But Gabriel, before you land,
Right.
the ArcelorMittal is, if you even take that away, we still have 1.011 billion.
Mhm.
So can we say that that standard bonus is almost insignificant?
No, it is significant because if you look at the core revenues, I believe they're 727 million, right? So, which is great, right? But in addition to that 700 and perfect, let's forget the 727 million core revenue. Let's say you take away the 200 million for ArcelorMittal, right? Which is a one-off. I agree with you. We're what is it, 1 billion? But if you look at the debt service, meaning how much we're paying on our debt that we owed, that is 230 million, right? So that brings it back down to, so technically we're only left with, what is it, 770 million to play with, right?
Right.
Overall revenues, right? Now, if you take away, you bring it back down to the core revenue, which is 727 million, and you take 230 from that 727, you see where the pictures are going, right? So it's good thing to look at the number collectively, but it's one thing to look at it individually to see what contribute towards that. And let's be realistic. Will this be repeated next year? Right. Next year, we're not getting the 200 million sign up.
Right.
Next year, the contingency will not be there. So the next year, the same debt service, which is 230, will still be there. It will probably be higher than this year, right? So you got to be realistic in terms of peeling back those onions and looking back.
And we'll go into that because next year projection is already there, so we can see it that we are not going down. We're still on an upward trend.
Right.
But if you look at the budget, I want us to start from the basic. First of all, before I want to start with the outlook, the economic outlook, to give us the basic. But before, for the sake of our audience now, you said, Gabriel, that you were excited. What in overall for a budget? We always, they will tell you budget is just a plan. It's an aspiration. We may get there, we may not. But what does a $1.2 million budget mean, or what does an increase of 38% increase in budget without even looking at the numbers? What does that mean?
Is a brilliant question, and this is one of the reservation that I had, and I think Jimmy will probably expand on this later, right? This was one of the other reservations that I had. So without trying to be too technical with the folks here, when you're doing a budget, any realistic budget, anybody who has done budget of whatever company, or you've been an analyst or whatever, right? You're doing a projection, you give 3 scenarios, Dennis. If you ask any economist or anybody in finance, right? If you're doing a projection, you get 3 cases, right? The first one is what we call the base case. Base case meaning if I do the bare minimum, all else being equal, right? Or maybe 80% or 75%, this is what I expect to get, right? That's the base case. But you also have to account for what we call the worst case scenario. If the revenue, imagine the economic projection they're making there. What if the economy does not grow to 4%? What happens? How does that impact the budget, right? What if ArcelorMittal does not meet the $200 million sign-on bonus? How does that impact your overall budget? So you have to give 3 cases: the worst case scenario, the base case, and then you go to the more optimistic side, which is basically, if I meet all my target, ArcelorMittal pays me the 200 million sign-on bonus, we meet the contingency, the economy grows at 4%, and we just collect every revenue that we project to collect. That is the optimistic side. We call it the up case, right? This is what is being presented. What they never accounted for is basically the other 2 scenarios. The worst case. Believe me, you can all plan in life. Life doesn't go always as we plan it. So you have to account for that to be realistic in your budget. The second one is the base case, which I think they should have argued, which I think they should have presented. If we meet maybe 80%, 90% of our target, this is where we expect to be. However, we're also looking at the up case if we do everything right? So in their assumption, when I look at the budget and I read the introductory part on the economic part of it, and I saw these projections, the economy is going to grow 4%, all of these things are going to happen. Those are what we call the up case, meaning the too optimistic. But in budget planning, you have to be realistic.
And we'll come to that. Jimmy, same question. We're at 700 million, 700 plus million. Now we're to 1.2 billion. What does an increase in budget, that number, what does it really mean?
The first thing is signified to me.
How do you explain that to my auntie? All the way in Sibley, Sino County.
Okay. When the government has bigger budget, that means they get more money to spend.
Right.
So if they got more money to spend, that means the country money growing. From say last year to this year, it now grew 38%. They got more money to spend.
Right.
So that's the first thing I think about. When you look at a Google, you see some of that money coming from the mining people giving us some money in front.
Mhm.
And not something that will be there every year.
Mm.
So, and also some of that money depend on how the people go and get and do certain things the right way
Yep.
before we get that money.
Mhm.
So the money big, but we have to take time because it may not be achievable. Something might happen.
Right.
All right.
So Jimmy, Jimmy, what you mean too is, you were in Monrovia there, you're making $100.
Mhm.
You live on Jamaica Road, right?
Mhm.
Now they put your money, you're making $200 now. You say, oh, and I live in Jamaica Road again, I'm going Mama Point. In
Mhm.
fact, I come and find 3 girlfriends to add on. So when you finish doing all that one, then the money now, even that raise you get, it means nothing. Because you take the money, you spoil it. So that when you said depending on doing certain things.
Mhm.
Oh, let's start with the economic outlook. They call it the macroeconomic outlook. So anytime they do the budget, they start with that. Let's see
Yeah.
what in it. Macroeconomic context and outlook. It says and Liberia's economy is gaining strength. In 2026, real GDP is projected to grow by 5.4%, up from 4.6% in a good thing in 2025 and
Mhm.
4.0% in 2024. So we are telling us this is growing. This steady upward trend reflects a broad-based recovery across key sectors and the government's strategic investments in agriculture, mining services, and infrastructure. So what they are telling us now, they say things looking good. Looking ahead, the medium-term outlook remains positive, with average growth expected to reach 5.6% between 2027 and 2029, provided that political stability is maintained, public financial management continues to improve, and private sector participation deepens. Sector-specific projection for 2026 highlight the engines driving the growth, where this whole growth is coming from, for which now our budget is 1.2 billion. Listen to me, let me talk about that. Number one, mining and penning is expected to expand by 11%, fueled by increased production of gold, iron ore, and diamonds. These gains are supported by regulatory reforms and raising global demand. The reason these things happening is we are tightening some holes, and then people on the global market want these things more. 2, agriculture and fisheries are projected to grow by 4.7%, driven by higher output of cassava, cocoa, rice, palm oil, and rubber. This reflects the impact of targeted investment in extension services, imports, and rural infrastructure. Services are set to grow by 4.2%, with momentum coming from improvement in ICT, that's the technology,
Yeah.
trade, transport, and public infrastructure sectors that connect people, markets, and opportunity. It don't stop there. Manufacturing and forestry are expected to remain stable, with manufacturing growing at 5.9%, forestry at 1.2%, supported by conservation, reforms, and value chain development. On the macroeconomic front, inflation is projected to moderate to 5.4%, 5.1% in 2026, maintaining a single-digit trend over the medium term. This reflects improved food supply from the agricultural sector, prudent monetary and underlying that word, prudent monetary policy, and efforts to stabilize the exchange rate. The Liberian dollar is expected to slightly depreciate modestly, reflecting structural pressures in the foreign exchange market and rising import demand. Jimmy, how
Mhm.
do you understand that and how do you explain it?
That was a mouthful.
You said plenty of things just now, but
Yeah, it was a
one thing
mouthful.
catch my
But
ear.
go ahead, take a stab, Jimmy.
Yeah, the thing that catch my ear was the agriculture.
Mhm.
They are projecting it to grow. But when I look at the budget, I see agriculture, it will just be 13.66 million, about 1.1% of the whole budget. Only 1.1%.
The money they put it inside.
Yes.
Ah.
So
but it doesn't stop it from growing, but continue.
No, but the whole idea is the money we spend, we spend it on importing food. We have what would they call a import dependence. If we don't import the food, we can't eat enough. So your focus, if you want to reduce your expenditures, your focus should be on agriculture. So only putting 1.1% in agriculture when you know that the main thing carrying your money, let me put it this way, the main thing carrying your money is you got to go buy food to the supermarket. You don't grow in a garden. So if you want to save money, you need to grow more food in the country.
The thing that Jimmy just said inside.
Yes.
Is it, the meeting we spend money on here at food.
Yes.
So if we put more money into food business, growing our own food or bringing food, it means our expenses will go down.
Exactly so. Exactly so.
Continue.
So why will you put this small amount in agriculture? But there's a reason why, and Gabriel was talking it just now. Most of the money that we spend, you will find out we're doing 929 million for recurrent. That means we pay people salary, we pay government expenses, 929 million, which is 76% of the whole budget.
Yeah.
It's just recurrent. The one for investment is only 281 million, which is only 23%. So all our money, they're talking about big money, we only taking 23% to invest in the whole economy. That means agriculture or schools or anything, roads or everything is there. And where that money coming from? Most of that money coming from the ArcelorMittal bonus.
Yeah.
No, Jimmy, you can say that one. ArcelorMittal bonus, I get 200,000.
Yeah, but it's only 200. But only 230 million for 281 million for investment.
Okay.
So, and most of that money going into what they call PSIP, Public Service Investment Plan.
Right.
Most of that money, that where it coming from. So they can't.
So if we were to move the ArcelorMittal money, it would be 81 million.
That's right. And we're supposed to be focusing on agriculture. So why now we made a budget like this when we could have cut down on other things? There's a way to fix it. The way to fix it is to cut down on other things.
We'll get there, Jimmy. We'll get to that. We'll go to that nitty-gritty. But the outlook that they say, like Gabriel was saying, is based on best case scenario.
Yes.
When everything is perfect or everything is good, this is what we're going to get. Right. Jimmy, I want you to speak to that before we go to Gabriel.
I'm sorry. I thought you were talking to Gabriel. Say it again.
Yeah, I'm saying, Gabriel was saying the economic outlook, because everything they say here is if everything is working correctly, if everything is fine or everything stable, that's what the economic outlook look at. But should you be in the economic outlook, should you be accounting for something that may never happen? I think that's how it's supposed to be, right?
Okay. So whenever your economy is dependent on other countries, you have to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay. Because if you don't take time and you think you will get a certain money, when you don't get it, you'll fall in trouble. Your money will be shut. Or you believe that you only spend so and so. Then when you go find out they carry the prices of all the things up, then you don't have enough money to do the things you want to do. So you have to always have a contingency, or you have to be careful about other things that will happen and would change the amount of money you would get. So you always have to be cautious of that when
Thank
you
you.
approaching it.
Gabriel, it started by saying in 2026, real GDP is projected to grow by 5.4%, and it's going to go up from 4.6% in 2025 and 4.0% in 2024. If we were to stop there, full stop, that's good news. First, what is this real GDP? How does it, because last year, real GDP was 5.4%. Sorry, yeah, 4.6%. What did I feel last year? So that in 2025, when I said real GDP is now 5.6%, what is it going to, how is that going to reflect on me living Bannersville? For me to
Right,
understand what real GDP is, so that I will be happy or sad based on this news.
and this is where the what we call the tire meet the roads, or if you really want to get into the meets and bounds of um, economics or financial economics or economy as a whole. This is where the you get into the really meets and bounds. So overall, if I may take it piece by piece here. First of all, they predicted that I think the bulk of the growth is coming from the extractive industry, meaning the mining. I think it's 11%, right?
Mm-hmm.
That again, so and then in that same length, they talk about the economy growing to 5%. Here's what I said earlier. That means the investment that is taking place right now in those sectors, specifically, let's say mining sectors, have to happen, right? Meaning, if ArcelorMittal or what other mining company in our country stated that they're going to invest at B Mountain, ArcelorMittal B Mountain, or APM Terminal, if they stated, well, APM Terminal is different. B Mountain, ArcelorMittal said they're going to invest, let's say, 100 million in the economy for, let's say, fiscal year 2025. They have factored that in there. That means in order to achieve that 6%, that 5.6%, all of those things in the mining sectors, right, needs to happen, right, overall. That goes for the agriculture sector. That goes for whatever activity they have in the service sectors, the private sectors that they talk about. Everything that they're looking at in those sectors must happen in order for the economy collectively to achieve that 5.6%, right? If, and this is a big if, because the reason why I said that, because we always have budget shortfall, right? What do we have budget shortfall? Usually, and this is what people don't do, whenever we have a budget shortfall, they do not come out and really explain to the average citizen why is that. Let me get back to my point. If there is a shortfall, right? Let's say if any of those things don't happen, let's say ArcelorMittal plan to invest 100 million in the economy and they don't, or B Mountain scale back on their investment for fiscal year 2026, that impacts not only the budget, but it also reverberates through the growth rate that we're supposed to achieve in that fiscal year 2026, right? And this is why it brings me right back to the point that I made earlier. When you make projections, you do base case, worst case, and upper case, right? So let's say in 3 months later in 2026, right, you are having, you're pretty much not on track in collecting the revenues throughout the year. You can go back to your revision, your models, and say, you know what, we did talk about this in our worst case, that if this economy did slow to 4% or 5%, this is the impact it was going to have on the economy. If B Mountain did not invest, this is the impact that this was going to have on the mining sector, right? So it goes back to basically every sector, looking at every sector and what the drivers are in those sectors. Excuse the light here.
Jimmy.
Yes.
Sorry, let me get back to that, right? It goes
Okay.
back to the same, it goes back to the investment in those sector. If you are making projections and there are any lapses in those areas, right, it will reverberate, you will feel it in the overall growth, right? So you can, when you read the macroeconomic, outlook on paper, word for word, English to English, it makes perfect sense. It reads like a poem, but does it align with what actually happens, right? Nobody can come out here and say I'm going to predict the economy 3 months, more than 3 months, right? That is unrealistic, and this is how we're supposed to be making projections. So my reservation with that is how these reservations are made, but also the fact that they are not accounting for the other scenarios that could happen, in case we don't have those growth that they are actually projecting in those numbers. Yeah.
Okay. So in that sense now, first of all, as you all mentioned, the 200,000 because of sign-up bonuses, so it's not sustainable. We're not going to get it next year. It's sign up. This is a sign-on bonus, so it's come one time.
Yes.
So what do we, first of all, how do we improve now domestic revenue without squeezing the ordinary Liberians? Because this whole thing, and we'll come to the budget shuffle and all that, the strength of it is domestic revenue. What are we collecting? What are we bringing in? How much are we making? Right?
Right.
And we are going to ArcelorMittal. So how do we improve domestic revenue? How do we get more money domestically if we can take money from these people? And I
Right.
promise I'm going to do a different show on ArcelorMittal because we got to look into ArcelorMittal and see whether whatever contract we are signing for this 20 million is signed, how it's going to benefit us. Because ArcelorMittal has been in the debate for some time now. I hosted some of our colleagues from Mimba County that came out and say, hey, this was for 30 years. At the end of the 30 years, they were expected to do X, Y, Z. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. Now we want to give. So there are a lot of things to kind of tease out there.
Yeah. So what was your question again?
Yeah, this domestic, if we put the ArcelorMittal thing one side,
Yeah.
and we still want to get to this revenue envelope, how can we do it?
So, and here's another, Jimmy, if I may just go first, and then
Please go.
You can take it home. And this is another thing that I want to dispel out there, that we raised 1.2 billion. We technically did not. The actual revenue base, as you and I saw in the budget, was 727 million. Far maybe a third of the way. It's just 3/4 of reaching a 1.1 billion, right? So, but to answer your question in terms of how we can look at or maybe expand the revenue base, these are, again, if I don't want to get technical here. These are just basic things that we need to do, right? First of all, you have to be able to identify, properties. You have to have a good tax base law, meaning either income tax, property tax, corporate tax, that is attractive. Not only that, you have to be able to make it easy for me to be able to pay my tax. for any corporation to be able to pay their tax, right? For, property owners to be able to pay their taxes, right? Not only for them to be able to pay those taxes, but to be able to identify those taxes and say, Jimmy or Dennis, you owe such and such on your property. Jimmy or Dennis, you're supposed to pay such and such corporate tax rate based on your revenue, based on how much you file, right? We do not have the fundamental tenets that drive those things that make it easier. Without trying to be too technical, right? Naturally, humans, we are irrational people, right? Meaning we don't do the things that are benefiting to us, right? You have to push us, right? You have to nudge. Meaning, if you want somebody to pay their tax, even though this is benefit, it will benefit everybody within the economy, nobody wants to do it. Why? Because this is money they feel like is leaving their pocket. So what do you have to do in essence as a government? You have to make it easy for them to pay it, right? Meaning easy payment online, digitize the tax collection, good collateral laws in the books, within the banking system, social securities, to be, what do you call it? Personal identification numbers to be able to identify each and every citizen within the country. And the most important things, I will say this before I land, having the ability for companies, every company that registered in our country should be able to file taxes. You cannot say you want to raise millions, billions of dollars, and you don't have a way for those people to report their taxes. One perfect example, you're going to do a segment on Salamintel. One of the challenges that the government is having with Salamintel, right, is that Salamintel is taking tons of iron ore out of the country, but we have no way of identifying that. Why? Because in that contract, the concession, we did not mandate for them to file taxes, to report all of their taxes. That way we can see, okay, Salamintel took 200 billion out of the country, so they owe us X, Y, and Z amount based on how much they reported in their taxes. If you are able to do that for corporations, for personal taxes as well, like we do here in the States, in a year, you will be able to collect way over $1 billion, right? That will be able to expand your tax base. Those are just basic. Those are what we call low-hanging fruits, smaller things that you have to do, right, to expand that. But I will leave it on that for now. To Jimmy.
Thank you. Let me welcome Dr. Joshua William, the teacher, the educator, and he leads Liberia Agenda for Transformation. Everything Dr. William talks about is about transformation. Welcome, Dr. Williams.
Thank you, Dennis, and I apologize. I was doing my educator's duty by helping another Liberian doctoral student complete his interviews. Nice. So I apologize missing out on such an important conversation. Welcome, Mr. Eastman, Mr. Carter. It's great to see you guys.
Nice to see you.
And Dr. William, we'll talk after the show because an hour late and 1 hour tardiness is unacceptable.
I thought better late than never was something to go home with.
Yes, certain places it's better you stay out than to be late. And because when they finish, but yes, one thing, and Gabriel, you strike a very important point because sometimes when we do this show, and since our country is so polarized, people look at only the political side. So by the time when you speak against the budget, or when you speak against the government, then you are branded CDC. When you speak against CDC, you are branded Unity Party and all that stuff. In fact, I'm coming out with a book very soon to address that phenomenon after being here for some time. The revenue cycle, because it's not everybody that has diamond and gold and beaches and all that, right? Like every time the people talk about their money here, their budget, I don't hear sign on bonus and all these different things. So what other ways, and you talk about that a little bit, or Gabriel, let me have Jimmy and Dr. Williams to come in. Jimmy, raising revenue. Because if we are able to raise revenue, that's why, in fact, I thought that getting to $1 billion in revenue is not even hard, and I'm even one papa in my town used to say, "Oh, to embalm somebody is not hard. Just cut the big V and put the medicine." And they say, "But papa, what medicine you put in there?" So I'm going to simplify to say it's not hard because we can see all the loopholes, things that when we patch, we can get what we want. So Jimmy, give me some more on how
Yeah.
we can raise the revenue without selling everything that under the soil that we have.
I think Gabriel began to touch the tip of the iceberg. He was talking about tax policy yield versus administrative reality. In other words, are we doing everything we can to make sure we get the proper taxes from these large concessional companies? If we allow these guys to tell us how much they're taking out of the country, we're not telling them. I mean, this is a critical issue. They tell us we took so and so from that. We have no way of monitoring and knowing exactly how much they took out.
Right.
That gives them a loophole to tell us what they choose to tell us. But that same idea applies to all the various concessions, mining that going on in the country. There are lots of loopholes. And it will require investing in security to close up those loopholes. I want to cite what Rawlings did. Ghana produces a lot of gold, but they were leaking gold all over. There was so much corruption. The country wasn't realizing a lot of the benefits it should have been getting. The people were taking oil out of and gold out of the country all the time. He made it so that if you try to take an ounce of gold, he secured all those mining areas so intently that if you even try to take an ounce of gold, you would be shot or put in jail for who knows time. So we need to close the loopholes because we are leaking. And if we don't spend the required investment to close those loopholes, it will continue to leak. So that is one way of increasing revenue.
Yep.
And there we could go some other things. And you say, where are we getting the money from to spend? Well, look, we have to recast that top line. That $900 some odd million, most of it going to recurring salaries and things. We have to take some from there and push it into investment. We just have, it's no choice. We don't really have a choice here. What we may have to do, may have to cut down on some other expenditures and items for that we could do away with. But isn't it better to not spend on paper or on cars, gas, and thing? Isn't it better not to spend on cars and instead put more security in our mining areas? How much the Chinese, because the mining sand and everything, what are they really taking off? Making sure what they're doing. Will we not get more from there instead of spending a whole lot of money on cars and gasoline and all of that? They need to wait until we get more, build up our economy, close the loopholes, and then when we start generating more revenue, our economy start picking up, we close those loopholes, then we can be able to provide incentives for the officials and whatnot. But we're putting the cart before the horse, and that as a result, we're dragging. We're just dragging our own economy. We have to first close up those loopholes, and our administrative policies have to be airtight.
Agreed.
Thank you. George, Dr. William, let me ask you this one, right? Because even as a household, we can get raised. I remember I was looking when I was working at Australia University, and I got B title too, learning resource manager, and I was making 28,000. This is like 2004. I now think back. So when I think back now, oh, how did I live, right, with 28,000? Now, so household too we can get raised, but depending on what you do with that money. So my question to you is, getting more money in our revenue is not a thing. Let's say I live in Jamaica Road. Soon I get $200 now. I will go into rent Mamba Point. I used to take my vacation to Ganta and Yakipa. But now because of the little raise I get now, I'm going to Dubai. So it really doesn't make any difference. So talk to me. Do we as a country, do we know the link, let's say, with this budget and what goes on in government? Do people really understand even applying it to our individual lives? Because if we don't make that connection, we can see the whole budget thing as something separate from our lives as individuals. If we are not making the connection, then we will not be able to ask the proper question. What do you think?
So Dennis, as an economics teacher in Liberia, one of the things, phenomena, or concepts that we will teach our students in basic economics is the whole issue of conspicuous consumption and income.
Right.
You know, every time one's income increases, there's a tendency and likelihood to pursue more quote unquote luxury items.
Yeah.
To commensurate with the increase in income. And I think that is exactly where we are as a nation. And we're no different from, the government is a combination of people. And so people behave like that. You have a budget now that has been projected for $1 billion. And so people are thinking they're living the $1 billion in how they're going to spend, how they're going to live, the kinds of decisions they're going to make. So they're projecting as a result of the kind of budget that they're about to administer. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to go back to the previous question: how do we raise revenue? Long before I decided to study economics at the university, one of my interests was the whole culture of borrowing without first exhausting local domestic revenue generation opportunities. I still see that as a problem today as it was yesterday. And I use a case in point. Our real estate tax regime is the weakest, maybe the weakest in the region. You ask the average Liberian, how much real estate taxes do you pay? Say, I don't even remember ever paying. That's a huge revenue base sitting and just waiting. I spoke to someone about a month ago, as far as real estate taxes is concerned. They said, no, LRA say I'm going to tell them how much their house were built for. And I paid. But, you know, now that we have, and I respect the work of Director Jala, I think he would do a lot in that position. But that is where we at the Agenda for Transformation comes from. A lot has to be changed. $1 billion is below who we are. $1 billion budget is below who we are. With our potential, is way, way, way below who we are as a nation. But certain mindsets have to be changed. Our orientation towards our government, our country has to be changed. I think while it may seemingly be ambitious, I heard the conversation while trying to come on that we have to be cautious. In economics, we have something called that we refer to as all things held constant. Mm-hmm. So for economic analytical purposes, we hold all conditions constant, that nothing's going to change as we project what's to come. And so economics is basically thought of, especially when it comes to budgeting, as positive economics. Positive economics, trusting that the conditions are going to be right and the revenue will be generated. But essentially,
That's not how life is.
no, that's not how life is. But you know what? That's how the discipline is. That's what it is. But we have to be realistic. With such a projection, and you talk about caution, Gabriel, we have to then take on some fiscal responsibilities. And one of those responsibilities, I would imagine, will be cutting down on some of the spending items of government. For example, where our President boycott, I would have pushed for a smaller government. I would not have appointed all these functionaries in government. I would shut down a lot of those places. I would not have, for example, a deputy minister for administration and an assistant minister for administration. Who's doing what? They're duplicating functions right there.
Yeah.
I will seek to rationalize the structures of government. We have too many agencies of governments doing the same thing. There's social welfare at health ministry. There's social welfare at gender ministry. There's education at Ministry of Youth and Sports. There's education at Ministry of... Who's doing what? Who's responsible for what? If we could amalgamate some of those agencies and reduce the size of government, because the bulk of government's expenditure is on payroll. Why can't we transfer or ship that to the private sector and give the Ministry of Commerce greater say, especially within the lines of industry? Why don't we push a private sector driven economy? We can finance it. We can finance it. All of these things, the example is what, even though Musa is putting his in building infrastructure, how he gets his money, I don't know. I'm just using that as an example. If we were committing, if government was committing, say, even $1 million per county for private sector investment, with a framework that monitors and ensures transparency in how that money is spent and is not going to members of the legislature for their private projects, a lot can be done. And the returns would be taxes generated by government. We talk about value added. Value added. A lot of our products are wasted. Our agricultural output is wasted annually because of the lack of value added. Government can invest in those things. It will create jobs. People will pay taxes. And so we're celebrating $1 billion, but yet we're in trepidation as to, is it sustainable? It is sustainable if we take the right actions. I haven't seen this government take the right actions yet. Yes, you have a good framework, a good platform to start, but there's other decisions that have to be made. And some of those decisions include making serious cuts in terms of, why does the legislature need...
You're back to what I was talking about. You have to find out money to invest.
$8 million.
Yeah.
Increased budget for the legislature to do what? Frankly, to do what?
Exactly. Where you need school, you need roads.
Dr. William, before you learn, you were talking about conspicuous consumption, right?
Yes.
Do you know that the legislature get a raise with the money?
Yes,
that...
$8 million. $8 million. Right. Yeah, I am not so much concerned with the raise, but the size of the raise. Because for that size of the raise, what's the justification? What have they done in the last 2 years that necessitates $8 million extra for that? What's the necessity for that? And so it goes back. Have we seen a budget performance report that
they have never even been audited? They have never even been audited. Not once.
And so that's a problem.
Thank you. And I was even thinking with dual citizenship and what we have now, what if those of us who are Liberian citizens and citizens of the U.S., we are, and for the lack of better word, calling it passport or whatever document they have there, that we all require to get it, and we have to renew it sometimes, or even if we are required, the same way if you're on green card, you can go out of the country, you have to count. So those of us that are dual citizen, we should be required probably every 5 years to visit Liberia, and that's revenue. We can be required to pay a fee to have whatever book, whatever document we need for our dual citizenship, and that should be renewable. Revenues are everywhere, right?
Yeah.
Dr. William, you are in education. Are we even requiring, how you call it, before you teach in the classroom, you should have a certificate, right? And this should be renewed. You should have something. Do we have an agency that is giving certificates for people? Do we have background checks for people to be in the classroom if they are not, people that molest little children? So all those little things bring about revenue one way or the other.
Indeed, Dennis, indeed, there are ample opportunities to raise revenue in Liberia. Skeptics will say, you know what, how much money can you raise from certificating teachers? But even if teachers were paying $5, that's $5 that one classroom in Sino or Grand Crew will have for at least one chair. That's $5 that a teacher will be paid in Grand Jita. That $5 could be used to buy chalk for the class at Bowater side. And so there are many things we can do. I mean, even for us who are of Liberian parentage or Liberian birth, okay, who hold Liberian passports, there has to be a framework. And one of the challenges of this diaspora conference that protesters are commentating about, that a framework has not been set up through which the engagement is more effective. But there's a lot that can be done. For example, why should Liberian passport holders, even though they have, you talk about dual citizens, but why should we pay the same fee as foreigners who are going to Liberia? And why don't you talk about even a card? The fact that we hold a Liberian passport, we should be able to pay something annually towards the development of the country. There are over 500,000 Liberians in the U.S. That's at least 500,000 U.S. dollars that could go to our country if each of us pay $1. If each of us pay $1 annually, even if we got vexed and said we'll pay $1 every month, $12 every month. Imagine if 200,000 Liberians, Gabriel, you're the finance man. If 200,000 Liberians across the United States, through an effective, transparent framework, contributed even $12 a year, that's a lot of money. We wouldn't have to wait for the metal steel. That could go into investment. But, again, we're still playing government. We're still trying to catch up while the rest of our neighbors are making progress. It's a lot of revenue to be made domestically and from Liberians outside the country. Before we start to go to the IMFs and what have you, when you look at the Ethiopian community here in the U.S., you see what they do and what they're doing and what they're doing back home, not just here, but back home. It's amazing. And some of that is facilitated by the government. It's facilitated by the government. And so I think, a smaller government, that's part of the transformation agenda, a smaller government, a private sector driven economy where you transfer some of those people in government back into the private sector by assisting and creating jobs. There are lots of jobs to be created. A lot of food we eat, Dennis, a lot of food we eat, the cassava. If we start to process those and get some people who barely can read in government and put them back into the private sector, y'all go there, y'all go work. Get other government offices. Go to the legislature. You got 20 people in an office that is smelling because the room is small and everybody from the constituency or the district is sitting there in one office. Send them out. Let them go back to the farms. We can do this. It's possible.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
possible,
yeah,
and it
thank
has to
you.
happen in our lifetime. We cannot
Thank
go
you.
down allowing things to continue as they are. And so the agenda for transformation insists that some of these things are possible, and all of us need to pursue it. You know?
Yeah.
So, Gabriel, we're talking about the taxes. I know we spoke about it briefly, but here are the revenue sources. I want us to explain this. What does tax revenue is 60%, non-tax revenue 7%. Then we have the Mittel steel, the Salah Mittel 17%, contingent revenue 2%, external sources like grant 6%. That will give us the total revenue of base, right? Gabriel, explain to us what all this mean. Tax revenue, non-tax.
Can
Keep it up.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I think at the beginning, Jimmy and I actually talked about this. So if you look at the non-tax revenues, right, you can think about things such as royalties from the concessions, right? The obviously the sign-on bonus from Asalamitao, that is basically from concession as well, right? Tax revenue, that's basically what we collect from our raw base. Sorry, I don't have my glasses here. Contingency revenue, and then we have external sources. External sources, basically, that's another name from slash grants and borrowing, right? What else am I leaving out here?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So again,
So who paying this tax revenue? Who paying taxes? Salary when you go you pay your salary. When businesses pay taxes.
Yeah.
Let's talk a
Real
little
estate.
bit about
so let me tell you, and this is why when people say, "Oh, we can," we we don't have the ability to for any administration to raise taxes to 1 billion is a kind of a far-fetched. When Cummings started talking about this, people thought he was kind of a cuckoo, right? When I go to Liberia later, I have a friend that I'm not going to name, whose job is basically to go into these businesses and pretty much figure out their taxes, right? Figure out how much they owe, right? Basically, he's trying to assess how much this. Okay, let's say I have a store here. How much do you think this store is making in a year, right? That's not a way to assess taxes, right? But unfortunately, this is how we assess taxes on businesses, right? I said this before, and every time I talk about something, I have a perfect example. I have people who work in the nonprofit. Some of them that got shut down doing this. You say pull out. Somebody I know specifically, a few people who make $1,000 a month US, they're paying 25% taxes, right? So that's $250 they're taking off. That's a high income tax rate, right? Which is great, right? From a revenue standpoint. But is that benefiting the average person? Somebody making 1,000 a month, you are taking a quarter of that. That's a high tax rate, right? And the reason why we assess that level of tax is because we don't have a broader tax base. So if I have a small tax base, I will squeeze everybody in that tax
Gabriel
base to
explain
get
that
as much.
small tax base, broader tax base. When you say broader tax base, mean plenty of people paying taxes.
Plenty. If I have plenty of people taking from it, I have a volume. Even if I'm taking 1 cent from you, 1 cent from Jimmy, 1 cent from Dr. William.
And plenty of people not paying taxes because plenty of people not working.
Exactly, right?
Okay.
And also, let me just add to that. And also, industries. Different. If the more industries you have, that's your tax base grows.
That is
if you have only got mining and forestry, that is a small tax base.
Right. That is the point that I'm getting to here, right? And then we go from that's the income perspective, and then we go to the corporate taxes. There are a few multinational companies in Liberia. They're not many, right? So we squeeze them. This is why we even went after Asala Mittal to get 200 million sign-on bonus, meaning before you and I sign this contract, Dennis, I need 200 million. You have to give me 200 million. Whereas what that does, in as much that you think you're getting that much money upfront, it kind of takes away your leverage to negotiate the entirety of that contract. Because if you're asking for 200 million just for me to sign a contract, I can negotiate and say, I'm already giving you 200 million. So I can squeeze you on the royalty aspect of it or any other concessional things such as building roads and schools and communities. I can squeeze you on those things, right? But again, because we don't have a lot of companies, so the smaller ones that come in, the little that come in, we squeeze them. Whereas, like Dr. Wah said, had we been able to expand to make it easy for people to start companies in our country, to make it easy for them to pay their taxes online without somebody physically going to the present place of business to figure out how much taxes they owe, you can even collect, small from little from everybody, right? Because you have a volume, you have a lot of companies there, and you will still easily be able to reach that broader, 1 billion, proverbial revenue that we're talking about. You'll be able to even go way above 1 billion, maybe 2 billion, 3 billion taxes, right? If you're able to expand your private sector, the way people pay taxes. But the point here, and I will say this quickly, the point here is not that we don't have the know-how, we do, but the implementation on our part then is, right? We know how to talk. Government is where people go to become mediocre, right? We know how to talk, but when you put somebody in a place to roll up their sleeves and put their head down and work and do the bare minimum, the smaller things, right? The way you do smaller things is how you can do the bigger things. To really do the smaller thing that will pay off into the bigger things, we don't do that. So this is why if you read the budget, economic outlook, you think this is some scholars from London School of Economics who wrote it, or people from, but implementing those things, the smaller things, investing in private sector. We talk about it here all the time. How the basic is how do you do that? Right? You say you want to invest in private sector. How do you do that? You make it easier for Dennis to register his company. Dennis register his company. He's focusing on business. You want profit. Guess what? Dennis will not want to pay taxes. So what do you do as a government person? Make it easy for Dennis to know how much he owes you. Make it easier for Dennis to pay his taxes online, because Dennis will not want to do it. But you make it easier for him. It will force him to do it, even though he doesn't want to do it, because he knows how much he owes. You know how much he owes, so he has to pay it. Because if he doesn't pay it, everybody knows. But if I have to walk to Dennis' place of business, okay, I see 5 bag of coals, maybe 25 bag of coals in this shop here. I see you got bag of cassava here, right? How do you even get to that point to raise that revenue, to determine how much the store is worth, how much Dennis' business is worth? Now you now have to assess how much Dennis owes the government to pay it, right? So again, it goes to the point that I was making. Do the smaller things. Mandate, even if I know people run Lapa Bido in that place, for a certain company making a certain amount, mandate tax returns. Hey, this is why we have it will broaden the accounting field in our country to a different level. Mandate people to pay income taxes. So basically at the end of the year, Dennis will go to, Sam Jackson Accounting Tax Services and file his taxes. He reports it to the government. The government said, this is how much you owe, Dennis. At the end of the year, Dr. Wah will take his consulting business to their accounting, a CPA firm, file his taxes, and send it to the government. The government said, Dr. Wah, you owe such and such amount, right? We do the same thing for properties. We do the same thing for, the way people report sales taxes and all of that. Basic things that people do. Another method that can be implemented here. You and I own cars. We pay insurance. We pay taxes, excise taxes on those cars. We pay inspections on those cars every year, right? So for car insurance, excise tax, registration every 2 years, excise taxes every year, the what do you call it? The inspection. I believe
Inspection.
every year you have to get an inspection in Massachusetts. At least I know. These are revenue generators, right? So again, to go back to this whole narrative that raising the revenue to 2 billion or 3 billion is a far fetched to the point that we're all celebrating here. Who we are. We're over 1.2 billion. It's easy if we just do the smaller things, right? So
Thank you.
yeah.
So this is two things. One, to broaden the tax base. Sometimes it becomes the chicken or the egg, right? So to do that, you need more companies, you need more people working, and
Yep.
for more people to work, you need certain things you have to do. Which one you do first? I was listening to the finance minister. He said, well, you could say that we are spending more money, but what we are doing is we are incentivizing the people that are creating the money. For instance, we probably was going to hire more engineers. So we have to put more money into that. So we have to pay more engineers, right? So it's like, what do we do now to grow the tax base to get more people working? Because more people working, meaning more people paying taxes. We have to grow our industry to have more companies. Like if you want to operate a company in my hometown, I mean, you got to drive there, So what do we do to grow the tax base so that we have more government can have more revenue from taxes?
I'll let the other guys go, and then I'll come.
I will touch on it a little bit because I think Emmanuel Jackson is touching on it. And this is why decentralization is so important. All of the region have the potential to produce industries, to produce businesses. But we've been taking this centralized approach where it has to come from Monrovia before those communities have the incentive they need to produce. If we had less centralization, the superintendent or those elected officials, the mayors and whatnot, they can go to the people. They can know what they can grow, what kind of businesses they can grow in their communities, because they can focus on themselves instead of having Monrovia focus on distracted with stuff going on in Monrovia, paying high salaries for legislature officials. Instead, these counties will be able to focus on themselves, invite investors directly to the counties, and grow local businesses on their own. So I really believe that decentralization is essential because the money is in the bush. Every time I go to Liberia, the Lebanese people can tell me, say, my man, the money now in Monrovia, the money in the bush. But why people still, we as Liberians, why do we go to the city? The money is over there. So let's move the focus from Monrovia. Let's direct it to the communities in the interior. Let them find their own way and their own resources to build up their economies. And until we stop this decentralization, we will not see the full potential of Liberia because we focus on what's going on in Monrovia.
Big O corruption. Sam want to make this thing partisan at all costs. Sam will not let you take a partisan approach. Will not let you. All right. So we talked a little bit of the revenue. Let's touch on the expenditure side a little bit. Expenditure, right? And so we all learned, we living within our means, because all the revenue we're talking about means nothing if we don't do anything with it. If we used to live Jamaica, now we want to live Mama Point. We want to take vacation to Dubai and the island, right? So the money we get, is how we are spending it. Compensation of employees for this year, salaries and wages of civil servants, officials, and staff throughout government sectors is 329 million. Goods and services, 162 million. Interest charges on loans, 55 million. Grants, 142. Social benefits, 29 million. Subsidies, on and on and on. But and then the recurring. So what we do with the revenue we receive matter a lot. If we get the revenue and then we open new government offices, I think now tourism is separate from MICAT now, from the Ministry of Information. So we have that tourism side. It needs its own people now budget, and that budget you can tell whoever was heading it now the title and the portfolio, everything have to go up. We have different things growing. We have asset recovery. The asset tax force guys say, how come nothing in the budget for me? Right? So let's talk about how we spend the money that we get. Are we good steward? Or is the government being the kind of good steward, has the Bible will put it, of the resources that's supposed to manage for us? How are we doing on that front, Dr. William? Looking at the expenditure side, is the money being spent wisely? Is it?
Dennis, I will say to you, it's an absolute no. I think President Boyka has an opportunity, unlike previous other governments. He has an opportunity for his age, and I put age in there primarily because at 80, 82, there's absolute no reason why he would be apologetic about any major decision regarding the transformation of the country. There's absolutely no reason he has to apologize to anybody. Because if at any point he himself becomes disenchanted with the progress he's making and people's dissatisfaction with what he's doing, he can step aside. He's done his part. Unfortunately, that isn't the case. Expenditure, in my mind, ought to focus on key economic drivers. All right. For example, you see in that line item you just showed, not the one, but the one before this, you saw grants, local grants. Why would we, in this day and age, still continue to pump money into water and sewer and LEC instead of privatizing those? Supporting government can use part of its revenue to support Liberian-driven initiative. There are lots and lots of Liberians who are engineers who could profitably run those institutions with government support and government being a shareholder, so that government takes away the responsibility from it. Government can also decentralize the whole process of service delivery. Yeah, and by that I mean water and sewer does not have to sit where it is in Waterside or wherever else it is, but it can become regional. As an institution, we can have several water supply institutions across the country.
I agree.
And those could be driven privately. Government can support those processes. You're talking about job creation. That is job creation. And the more of such institutions we have, the wider is going to be our tax base, and the greater is going to be our revenue base. And it's simple. It can be done. LEC, same thing. We have all these rivers. Why don't we go into a regime where across the country we regionalize electricity supply so that our people can have it? All right. Road supply, same thing. We're contracting a Sierra Leonean firm. I wonder what's going on with Liberian firms. Why don't the government trust Liberian firms to do some of the things we want foreign firms to do and capacitate them? As one who's been in, not just in government before, but also in the nonprofit sector, I see that our government doesn't work for us. It hasn't worked for us. And we need to get to a point where colleagues and I who did work with USAID in the past have set up a consultancy to fill the gaps that USAID left. And we're struggling right now to even get sitting with government officials to just sell them the idea, hey, you guys open doors for a foreign firm to come in to work with you, to train you, to build your capacity. But you have Liberians who can do it. Is it possible that somewhere in this process that this firm, this Liberian firm, local firm, can be empowered and capacitated so that they too can contribute to the tax base and create jobs for others? We can do it. All we need is a government who trusts its people. And as it is right now, our government does not trust its own people. And so we're investing in foreigners rather than investing in ourselves. You know? And that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. And that the highlight of the transformation agenda is to ensure that we have a government in place that respects and trusts its people. It can entrust its people with the resources, because only Liberians can change Liberia for the better. Yeah?
Thank you. And one day we'll talk about this transformation agenda. I promise you. we got to talk about.
It's an ideology, not a political party.
Yeah, I know. Don't be afraid of political party. In fact, I start thinking about it. I said, well, with all the people in everywhere saying Denny, maybe that's time for me to run for president now too.
You better decide.
Don't.
All right. So the money that we show in expenses, this is how it's being allocated. I'm using round numbers here. Public administration, 466 million. Municipal government, they always tell you Grand Crew has more cities than Nimba County. So, Dr. William, I want to give you the task to tell me, not on this show, how much is going to the Grand Crew municipal government? Because you have more cities than Nimba. I want to see how much going to each city in Grand Crew.
Let me say this off the top of my head, Dennis. I'm originally from Grand Says, right? My mother's from Grand Says, so we're part of Grand Crew. We consider ourselves the Morovia of Grand Crew, even though there's not much there. There's not much there, but I was part of the Grand Crew chat room where the senator chairs, Representative Kofa, and all these big wigs reside. And it will astonish you to know that the members of the legislature in Grand Crew have more projects going on in Grand Crew than the county's budget. And as a private citizen, it makes absolutely no sense to me. Absolutely no sense. That all of the projects going on in the county is spearheaded by Representative Kofa and Senator Chin. So what's happening to the county budget? There's no absolutely.
All right, so
I've asked about that for 3 years running, and none of these folks can tell me, or anyone. The last Councilor Kofa told me was the county has received no county development fund. But the people in Riverside have gotten county development fund. Maryland County has gotten county development fund. So why is Grand Crew left out? And you, Councilor Kofa, you're a buddy of President Weah. You're a confidant of President Weah.
So exactly. So my assignment to you is the next time I want you to report to the world, the municipal government of Grand Crew, how much they get in their budget, each city. Because when now Vice President Khan went there, they said they even have graveyard, so they have a lot of cities in Grand Crew. In fact, where I come from in Sino, the town I come from is city now, but that's a bigger town. But the little things, the little area around
what's the definition of a city? Is it like how many thousand people is considered a city in Monroe?
Well, Grand Crew is under.
So let's look at the budget.
No.
Municipal government 67 million.
Municipal 67 million. I'm not sure how much of that goes to even Grand Says, my hometown, my home city.
Security and rule of law, 152 million. Health, 102 million. Education, 133 million. Please underline security and rule of law. And I want to security people, security and rule of law, 152 million. Health, education, infrastructure, and basic services, 133 million. Social development, 16 million. Energy and environment, 78 million. Agriculture, 14 million. Industry and commerce, 16 million. So what is this health? What is this security and rule of law, the NSA? Then if you drill down in the budget, we'll see that. Gabriel, I want you to talk about this one. You know, where we putting the money? They say put your money where your mouth is. Where is our mouth?
What, the security and rule of law?
Anything on the allocation? How do you look at how the money is allocated in the budget?
So for me, I think the expenditures in that entire budget, it's a little bit. Hold on, if I may read through here.
Public administration is
public
463
administration.
million.
That is,
Goods and services.
466. What is it? 466.
466
Municipal
billion.
government.
Municipal government, 67
security
million.
and rule of law, health. Now, the part that sticks out to me is the health, right? That basically everything we spend on healthcare, 102 million, right? What are the biggest city hospital in the country? JFK. We got is it Phoebe Hospital, right?
Jackson Doe Redemption Hospital.
Jackson Doe Redemption, and all of those. How far do you think 102 million can take you? I'm talking equipment, medicines every day for each and every one of those hospitals, right? Expenses have to come out of that for doctors and administrators and nurses and everything else to the administration of the hospital. So the fact that we're just spending 102 million on healthcare, right? Which is basically goes to those hospitals. I think Dr. Ward mentioned that earlier. Could we privatize the healthcare? Could that be a possibility? And because there are better run hospitals in the country than what we have at JFK. The other one is the security and rule of law. You mentioned clearly NSA. NSA basically never got audited. As you can remember the last time in the, I believe the audit report where they're basically a funneling channel for money. I understand the security of the president maybe is important for our country. The police and military forces is important, but how much do we really have to give to NSA? And what do they really do? Right? So for me, I don't want to just go bit by, step by step in terms of one item. I want to look at it collectively. And if you look at it collectively, what do we spend? 76% on recurring expenditures, right? What I would say this quickly, and this is just an arching thoughts. What I hope, and I think every time I come on here, I get excited to talk about the budget, but the more you talk about it, the more you realize until we shift the priorities of the budget, meaning these perks we give the representative, the legislatures, as Dr. Wah pointed out, right? Those incentives, the cars, the crash card, the fuel subsidies, and all of that, until you shift the priority, right, from it being spent on consumption to investing in infrastructure, putting more money into healthcare. If you want to continue with the healthcare, putting more money into education, the budget is going to continue to be the way it is, And this is why I hope, and this is, I hope all the opposition, the main opposition, like the ANC, now the CDC, right, or the LPP, you see budget like this, right? Give an alternative of what your government would do. Give an alternative budget that could be better. That would be what I call people-centric budget, right? That focus on investment on people. That will make sure that as you spend the money, within a year or two, people will start benefiting from it compared to what we're getting now. Because if we continue to spend the way we spend, and we have been doing this since this post-war democracy experiment we've been having over 22 years.
Right.
Nothing has changed in that country, right? I will say this quickly and I will end. We were working on a proposal specifically on education, right? I think we did the discussion on Dr. Wah program, right? Where it's basically the way to fund our education, meaning you can tax the incoming remittances 3%, right? And you take that 3% for every dollar that goes in, the government take 3% off of it. You save that within 10 years' time, right? You will have over 150 million, right? And if you do that over 30 years' time, you invest all of that. So that means 800 million going into the country every year. You take 3% of that, that's 24 million, right? You invest 14 million, you save 10 million. Every year you invest 14 million in education, you save 10 million. Within 15 years, you will have $150 million war chest education fund that is growing, maybe at 5% or 6% or 7% or 10% a year. If you do that over 30 years' time, you can grow that 10 million that you put in every year to almost $1 billion, that you will have an education war chest that you can improve every school in our country and still have an educational fund that will never run dry, right? You have to look at an alternative like that. Excuse me, my
Right.
timer
And
is off here.
while you are there, let me see if I can. All right. You may not see this clearly, but we're talking about the NSA, and I don't want to nitpick because it's the same thing. I just want to give you a picture of if you're not getting that clearly, but over there is the security and rule of law. So security and rule of law, that starts with the judiciary, Ministry of Justice, National Defense, National Security. So of all these places, if you look at the column there, which is the 2026, that's the 1, 2, 3, 4th column from left.
I thought the LDEA was part of this segment as well.
Look, Dennis, allow me to chime into a little bit on the security thing. The Liberia 2026 budget allocates 151 million to security, and rule of law, versus roughly
and rule of law. That's what indicates from judiciary to national center. The list I put here. Go ahead.
Right. Versus roughly 163 million to all infrastructure and economic sectors combined. There's been one theme on this show tonight, that we have to shift our investment toward building the economy instead of where we can know nothing on our return of investment, our ROI. If we do not shift this mind, this thought pattern, we cannot grow the economy the way we want to. Because the only way you grow any economy, any business, any entity is to invest in it. And our investment is very low. The agriculture, which is fundamental,
the productive sector
in this arrest agenda, they only appropriate 1.1%. That cannot be achieved unless you allocate more investment in this. It sounds simple, but apparently is giving us difficulty, because we will have to reduce this consumption of our legislature and whatnot. We have to just cut it off. And if they were true patriots, if they really love Liberia, they will forego some of these things for the benefit of the school, for the benefit of businesses, and for the benefit of Liberia as a whole. But we don't see that, and we got to change this trend for the future of Liberia. That's the only way it's going to happen.
Right. And let me tell you the numbers more for honor, security, and rule of law. If you look on the screen, you see judiciary. Before judiciary, there's another one there that got cut off. But what that is we have, and look at 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth column. So for Law Reform Commission is 1 million. Judiciary, 33 million. And I'm running these numbers up. Ministry of Justice, 62 million. Ministry of Defense, 20 million. National Security Agency, 22 million. So this security agency should be powerful. For a long time, what we have seen is, and that's what when the President Bouaka took office, that's why they were taking Tua and the rest of the people to court. They were being indicted because they say you are stealing money to NSA. So what we're going to do, we're going to audit NSA. Anybody remember that?
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah,
and then
that was the
quickly
audit
died
report I was
down.
talking about.
So that died down, and the same trend continued. So is it that the president realized that, oh, I was mistaken, this is very needed, or somebody pinched the president and say, Babe, that the place your window chopping can come from? Which is which?
Well, I want to tell you one thing. You know, investment in security has you can't measure it in ROI, return on investment.
But boy, now that a card that we're fighting here.
But when something happens and many people lose their lives, can you put a price tag on those lives? So it's a very touchy area.
Delicate.
Yeah, to deal with.
So the president realized the same way that Senator Dillon apologized for the private jet. It's the same way now the president, this current government realized that, hey, this is really, president number one needs a private jet. Number two, we need to fund national security even more than the defense ministry.
Well, Dennis,
go ahead.
Dennis, sorry, if I may, while national security is of utmost importance, what almost doesn't make sense is to see that national security is overfunded as far as the Ministry of Defense is funded. Now, the Ministry of Defense is a standing institution of men and women who sacrificially serve the country. I'm sure those are national security, but the situation with national security is a little different. Yes, I understand that national security goes beyond the borders of the country, but let's be all honest. If we're funding Liberia National Police, we're funding the LDEA, we're funding the Ministry of Defense, I'm not sure the size of the investment and the executive protection agencies, I'm not sure the size of the investment in the National Security Agency, justifies what's going into it as against what's already been invested in other institutions. Now, this is not to minimize in any way national security, but if for a government who propagated the whole concept of rescue and the arrest agenda, we're hoping that your agenda, the budget becomes transformative. This budget isn't transformative. Yes, we now have a $1 billion projection, but it's regrettable. Look at agriculture, for example. That's less than $1 million per county.
Which is the first A in the arrest agenda.
And this is the A in the agenda. This is sad.
Yeah,
exactly.
This is sad. I mean, even as an educator, I feel so sad. I will say cut from education and put to agriculture. Because if the children are not eating, they're not going to learn. No matter how many schools we build, how many teachers we employ, kids will not learn if they're not eating well. So cut from education and put to agriculture. 40 million?
Yeah.
40 million? And you have a legislature that receives far more than the entire agricultural sector. That has no economic justification. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. And I bring into question the framers of the budget, including my good friend Gafon. I mean, what is the rationale? How are they justifying their rest agenda with those figures for agriculture?
Exactly.
For agriculture.
Exactly.
And then you talk about energy. Yeah, 7 to 8 million. It's a good amount. But again, what if we started to look? The Liberian diaspora is a resource that the government needs to tap. That the government needs to tap and tap strategically. There are Liberian engineers all across the country who will jump at the opportunity of running the power, regionalizing power supply across the country. It can be done. It can be done. 78 million to institutions that do not give back to the country. Do not give back, contribute to the budget.
Let me read a comment here.
Who the economists in the government? Who are
Dr.
the
William, Kafuma Suarez said we are a post-war country. Investment in security is necessary at this time. And I think Kafuma is taking security to mean NSA. He probably does not see police. He does not see military. He does not see. So how will you respond to?
Kafuma needs to know we are 20 years out of war. 20 years out of war. And the character of war we had would not repeat itself in our country, no matter what. It would not repeat itself. What we need is to bring economic liberation to our people.
Exactly. So that's more security. That's better security.
Yeah. Economic security is far more. Far more. Why do we need to invest in national security in the amount and leave our agriculture? The people are not eating. People are not eating. We have the land. We can't touch the land because we're not investing in it.
Right.
Minister of Commerce.
But I want to add something to what Dr. Williams' team, Dennis, and I mentioned this before. One of our biggest expenditure is on food.
Food.
How will you then not try to cut down that expenditure and invest in agriculture? It's just counterintuitive here.
Yeah.
It's counterintuitive. What are you doing? It doesn't make any sense. You invest in agriculture, you spend less importing goods.
I believe the rationale here, and this is a place where you get to and you realize that people are then beating into submission. We feel that so long that the country is safe, everything else is fine, right? So long that the country is safe, that everything else is fine. That's the rationale behind that, and I believe that's the justification on that. This is why people are saying, "Oh, invest in security," and this is why we justify the investment in security. That if the rationale, we're safe in the country, that's all that matters. Everything else is secondary.
And Gabriel, what is this security to them? Is it NSA? Is it the National Police? Is it the LDEA? Is it the military? What is? Are we limiting security to? And that's what our friend Samuel. You don't get economic security if the country is not first has secured by investors.
So and this maybe I should expand on that a little bit more, right? So for most folks, right now, I know I beat on the NSA because of what was actually in the audit report, right? Which we should because of the slush. It was literally like a slush fund that they were running out of there. I'm surprised that nobody got indicted for all of that and went to jail for it, right? But I believe their role as it's important, right? Perfect example. We are having a drug crisis in our country, right? I'm sure these people provide intelligence to the president and his team in terms of who they think the kingpins are who are bringing drugs in our country. Even beyond the country, what do they think those drugs are coming from, right? Those are intelligence that are very important. The other aspect would be, I think probably about 6 or 7 years ago, we had on the audit, not audit, the sanction report that we had some companies that were affiliated with Hezbollah operating in the country, right? That were on the sanction list, companies that were on the sanction list, right? We need intelligence on those people running those companies. I'm sure the president and his team do have intelligence on those people. So those things are very important. However, it cannot be the base for which we just settle for everything else. That so long that you're keeping us safe, we're okay just being safe, even though we're walloping in poverty. You're taking all the funds, the revenue that are being collected, and putting it right back in the pocket of the politicians that are just literally doing nothing. I think that's what people have settled for. This is why every time you touch on the national security, the police, the military, people think, oh, we have safety. You can't touch that. Yes, we do have safety, right? We need safety for investors to come in, but you also have to be cognizant of the amount of money you're spending on those people, whether it is actually returned, you're getting a good return on your bucks. One point here. The other point is that when you have good security in your country, right, steady security for over a long period of time, people consider the country safe, right? They see it as a safe place. One, politically, if I want to come invest in Liberia, I want to make sure that I look at the history that this country has been, there's no turmoil or in a country for over a certain period of time. If there is, or there has been, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take out the security and insurance risk on that investment, right? But do investors consider Liberia a safe place as an investment destination, right? When somebody think about going to invest in West Africa, does Liberia pop to their mind to say, if I go to this country, I'm going to get a return on my investment? The first thing to look at again is the security, the stability in the country, and regionally. The region we don't have control over. The domestic one we do have control over. But what else are we using to attract investors, right? So it's safety is one point, but there's other along those lines, other factors that we need to be considering as well. So we can't just say, oh, so long that we're safe in this country, everything else is okay. That is not the case. So we need to hold the security forces, the NSA, the military, the police, even the police accountable, and the people that are heavily investing in them without, a return on our money accountable as well. So we need to look at it collectively.
Thank you. This is today's introduction. We're going to go into the national budget or draft budget more so that, as the House and the Senate, the legislature discusses the budget, then so that our people be informed to participate. If you have questions or comment, please call 605-313-6004. The code is 791-403. That's our budget. We should talk about it.
Dennis, Sam is asking some quick question. He's more concerned about, I don't know, we've gone over this, but how can we grow the budget? There's a quick, in 18 months, you can give figures. If we close the customs leakage at the Freeport Bow and Waterside and induce electronic tracking, we could potentially make 50 to 90 million extra a year. If we enforce existing mining, logging, royalty payments, and deploy third-party metering at mines and log yards, we could make 20 to 40 million a year. If we use better property tax on urban commercial structures, the Cinco Congo time, we could get 25 to 60 million of a year. if we use the telecom spectrum and digital service levy, charge telecoms in 3, 4G, 5G spectrums, we could potentially make 15 to 35 million a year. There, I could go down. There's a plethora of ways we can grow revenue. It's not impossible, but it takes the will and it takes policy. And you have
Jimmy, all that you have said, why is it not happening? Is it that what is it that you know that Depuzuo from focused on Labrador that Gafon, that Bronson, the little they have there for budget and planning. What is it that you know that they don't know? Or what is it that you know that Joseph Newman Bwaka does not know? So why is it that this continue to happen?
We'll have to bring Depuzuo back.
Okay, Depu, if you are watching, please come. Why are we not the recommendations Jimmy just listed? What are we not doing that? Is it that when you on the sideline, you can look at these things better, and then when you get there, you no longer see it, or are we just naive?
I think it's the latter. I think we're just naive because there's no way. A perfect example, and I want to keep staying on these concession things, right? I think somebody has alluded to or even mentioned here that since those concessions has been signed, I think it was a comment in the comment section that none of those concession companies have held their end of the bargain, right? How do we mitigate that? How do we resolve that, right? How do you ensure that if I go into an agreement with you, Dennis, you are the you're the mining company and I'm the country you're coming, that if you say you're going to pay 5% royalty every year, that you're going to do that. If you say you're going to develop the Yekepa to Monrovia highway or whatever it is, that you're going to do that within 5 years, son, that is actually done. And if those things are not done, which are what we call covenants or agreement clauses within the contract, there should also be remediation within that contract that you need to do to make it whole. And there should be no other body, circumventing that process of besides what was agreed to within our contract of you making it whole. If there was financial agreement, meaning if you don't build this highway within 5 or 10 years, and we said in a contract that you need to pay, 10 million to the government to make that process whole again, so we can go back to that agreement and make it whole, you need to pay that, right? The question becomes, am I holding you accountable for those things? That if you don't do that, am I holding you accountable, right? The other thing is instead of negotiating at this royalty level, right, from for a company that's taking billions of dollars out of the country, you negotiate at the ownership level. Meaning, if we are establishing this company, you take, because you're putting in bulk of the money, you take, let's say, 70%, I take 30%, or you take 60%, I take 40%, right? That means the revenue gets split at that level. So you don't have to go figure out again whether, this 5% royalty that you're being, this is your resources, you have control over. But we don't do that. And if you look at, I will say this quickly, I know we're out of time. You look at all the concessions that were signed. I had the opportunity to read 5. We were skimmed, we were exploited, and even the amendments after each one of them that were done, the same thing, right? And it begs the question is to who were the people sitting at those tables signing those agreements? And you can go there, you will see prominent lawyers' signatures on there, House of Representative, speakers' names on those agreements, right? So it's not just we don't know, it's naivete, meaning technically that's what it is, ignorance. You go in front of people who have years of negotiation where you don't have a clue what you're getting into, right? And they take advantage of you. Yes, some of them do get paid under the table to skim, but I think most of it is just pure ignorance. And this is why we'll continue to be in this predicament. I yield.
Thank you. We don't have a caller, so this is the question I want us to close with. You know, in America, they say Monday morning quarterbacking, because the people that are running these things, they were on the same talk show we were on before they were these things. And when they get there, we don't see. So I don't know what the problem is. And this is something, but we nonetheless will continue to make our point. So my question to you to close with is, what one reform, it could be fiscal, legal, or institutional, will you recommend to improve future budget cycles? And what would you recommend to improve so that we are not singing the same song over and over and over again? Jimmy, Dr. Williams, and then Gabriel, as we close.
Okay, what one reform? Let's see. I think one reform will be to let's see.
Okay.
Like
let me start, Jimmy.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Let someone else start. Let me think about it.
There was a big military man. We worked together in Pennsylvania. He said he was so amazed about toll. So he said, when we were in the military, we used to say, "Oh, when they assign you at Salala Gate, you don't even have to test your check." He said, "We didn't know that toll that income." So when you assign at Salala Gate, so they are one of the major areas where all these things go is corruption. People steal the money.
Okay.
So if we close that hole, there is this asset recovery thing going on. At the end of the day, not trying to be pessimistic, maybe nothing will come out of it. People continue to steal and they go scot-free. You know, war crime code, the window for war crime code had passed. I don't think we're going to have it. We're banking on economic crimes, you know, so that at least people will pay back what they stole from us. And maybe that too may never come. You know, so as long as we don't punish corruption, people steal and then they say you're smart. If you don't steal, you're in government, you're stupid. As long as we don't close the hole for corruption, we can even make $7 billion budget. If we will steal it, it's no use.
Okay,
so what reform?
What one? I think one reform. I think I would take a page from Gabriel book here. We have to put the core revenue, project the core revenue separate from the contingent revenue, because the core revenue is what is reliable. Okay, the core revenue, what we show, we're pretty much sure we will get. Okay, we're talking about taxes, customs, service on remittances, all those sort of things. That's what we're talking about. Or those contingent revenues like AML bonus and stuff like that, it should be separated so that we have a clear picture of what we know we can do and a maybe picture. I think if we separate those things, it gives us a realistic baseline of where we really are, instead of thinking we got 1.2 billion and plenty of it is just some bonus and that's going to be channeled into our investment, what do you call it, public sector investment plan. And if it doesn't come, we don't realize it. So I think we need to separate it.
Dr. Williams.
For us, from the transformation agenda, we pride our belief in a smaller government, and so for us, an initial reform that needs to take place is the shrinking of the structure of government. We do not need all of the institutions we have. They are an unnecessary burden on the revenue basket. And so one, shrinking of the government, and that can be a show all by itself. How small do we want our government to be? We want to see greater investment in the productive sector, agriculture and industry. If we're going to strengthen our economic base, strengthen our revenue base, we have to invest in the productive sectors. Those two, particularly agriculture and industry. If we can invest at least 25% of our national budget in those two areas, it could push and surge our economy and increase our revenue potential. That's just initially our thoughts, that we need a government that is private sector driven, an economy that's private sector driven, that is Liberian oriented, so much so that we're employing our people, we're investing in our people. And why I applaud the 113 million investment in education, it absolutely makes no sense that we're investing a meager 14 million in agriculture. That speaks volume as to our priorities. It speaks volume to our vision of where we want this country to go. It reveals how lowly we think and we see agriculture as a catalyst for economic development in the country. And that's troubling. That is troubling. We have a president who prides himself in being an agriculturist. He worked in the sector before. He knows the productive capacity of the sector. And to invest a meager 14 million, while national security gets what? 22 million? Yeah. Again, Sam Waller was saying, why cut from education? I told him, I'm an educator. Of course, I'll be pushing for a higher budget for education. But if the government is saying they can't find money anywhere, let's go to education and cut some of it. Because maybe we don't need the 100 schools if we can have children in those schools that are well fed, so that we can have agriculture. And we're talking about employment. Senator Dillon prides himself in championing jobs for Liberians. Do you know how many Liberians? That's the ripple effect about investing in agriculture. You're going to depopulate the city centers. Our streets are going to be less populated with cars. People are going to move back into the counties. Yeah. And jobs can be created in those areas. Along with agriculture, we're talking industry, support to the industries. All right. Gone are the days we had flour mill in Buchanan. They employed people who were producing flour. So much of our agriculture products are lost because we've not invested in the right industries to support our agricultural production. And we can do that. We can do that as a nation. We don't need 10, 20 years to transform Liberia. It can happen. In 2 years, it can happen. In 3 years, it can happen. People can begin to see the benefits of transformative governance. Let us call it that. And so transformation is going to be the hallmark of our discourse on this platform and everywhere else. We need leaders who are transformative, not people who go on Facebook and take pictures all day while our country stagnates and our neighbors are progressive, Dennis, I could go on and on, but please shut me up.
I was watching the press conference with the finance minister, LRA boss, and most of them, they were reacting to what they see on Facebook, and it was, to me, it gave me a very informative press conference, but it was more driven. It was so reactionary to me. Oh, I saw this headline on Facebook. I saw this other one on social media. I saw this on, give us the thing. Do not react to some of the people, what they are saying on social media, some of the things that you are responding to. The people don't know better, or because they don't even have the information. Give us the information, Gabriel, let's close on this. Your one reform that you think, I like that, Judge, because if the government continue to expand, we're not actually seeing, our monitoring evaluation is kind of a little weak, but we see every day things are growing. And what is driving that expansion? What is it that we need that we cannot get unless we have this ministry or this agency or this other person? So, the government is not telling us based on any study, based on any number, based on anything, that why they are doing these things. So maybe we don't have to be like you said, the deputy minister, assistant minister, doing the same thing. I visited my friend at the gender ministry where people will sit outside because there's no space in the office anymore. So I said, one thing, if I'm here, I would do is I'm going to go through at least a month. Tell me what you are doing, what you are spending your time on a daily, every hour. Let's track your time. If there is nothing much you're doing, don't waste your time coming here. We can still pay you, but use that time. If you're in balance, go to Goodrich and maybe stand to the door and cross do something, right? Even if you have to proctor a test or you have to keep eye on the kids in the playground, that's more productive than coming here to sit in the hallway and wait for somebody to call you. Gabriel, your reform.
Yeah, Dennis, I quickly before I even make those suggestions, the reactionary thing you're seeing with those folks on social media is just because they don't have the they don't have they don't know what to report. If you know what you're doing, you'll know what to report. If not, you will just go off of reaction from social media. I've listened to the Minister of Finance speak plenty of times. Sometimes it's just like he go off the handle. But that's besides the point here. Maybe I should give you two. So the first one is something that I'm a big proponent of. Hopefully we get a president who can actually do that. It's basically, as I alluded to earlier, to really shift the budget to be people-centric, meaning this exorbitant amount of expenses we give to the ministries, the legislation, the NSA, the rule of law, shift that to the public service investment, right? Cut all, maybe reduce the salary for the senators, the representative, and shift that money towards public service investment, right? Someplace where you're going to get the return for the money. Now, I know that is a hard fetch, right? Because the same people whose salary you're cutting will be the same people voting on the budget. And if that means we have to shut, like we do here, we shut down the government until they sign it, so be it. But you have to do that. If not, we will continue to raise, I think you alluded to this, we'll continue to raise, even to 10 billion, but everything will be spent on exactly the same people. So that would be one of my recommendations. Literally go to the budget and see how do we redirect this budget. If that means, because the budget is a law, you have to, make an amendment to change it, right? So be it. And if they don't want to sign it, sit on it. Let them sit on it until somebody come to the table and sign it. The other one would be something I think we talk about on the show most of the time. You see, the gateway to Liberia economy is right now, technically, we have airports, but we don't make a lot of money. It's through the free port of Monrovia, right? That port is hijacked by one entity that charges exorbitant amount just to free one container. When you go free your container, they don't just charge you to say, I have a 44 container or a 24 container. There's a flat fee. No, it's not a flat fee. What they do, they open the container and go item by item by item by item, right? And they charge you based on those. They assess the fees based on that, right? So they make it very expensive for people to import into that country, right? People do, because you want to do business, you do. But what are you going to do when you take on that exorbitant amount of fees? You pass it on to the consumer, meaning the end buyer. Another recommendation, which is my last one, would be put out concession, put out request for proposal, right, or investments to dredge the port of Buchanan, to dredge the port of Greenville, to dredge the port of Harper, right, and make it easier, cheaper for people to ship. What you're going to do once you have commercial ports in those areas, the economic activity is going to ship to those places, right? If I'm in Grand Bassa, I don't have to come all the way to Freeport to free my stuff. I can have it shipped right there. economies are going to start setting up, booming within those districts. The same thing with Hopper, the same thing, like you said, Greenville, right? So the port of
that is part of my 5-year plan as superintendent of China.
the free port being the gateway, the only gateway to our economy, right? And it is strangulated by just one entity. So my recommendation would be to look at expanding the port's authority to various ports and dredge all of them to make them commercial.
But let me add something to what you say. They talk about RIA. You mentioned RIA just now. If we upgrade RIA to a storage facility, I mean, you have warehouses there that can store fish or agriculture. We could be a corridor directly to the EU and to Arab states, but we'll have to upgrade the airport to be a storage facility. We have fish there.
The free port, right?
They could be taking off. Planes could be going every single day carrying agriculture produce to Europe, to the Arab. We have the potential, but for the sake of FOL, I'm going to make this clarity for education. Education is the engine of long-term growth. It raises productivity, it expands the tax base, it reduces unemployment, and it attracts investment. 70% of Liberia are under the age of 35. Right. If less than 30% of Liberian students can demonstrate literate proficiency. So youth unemployment remains one of the highest drivers of social instability. So if we want to spend less on security, then we'll make sure our youth are skilled,
are employed,
right, and they are with hope.
Right. Dennis, I think that's it.
And let me conclude with this final this recommendation. And Tom talk about it. I've never worked in government in the private sector, where if you're working with a company, the vision of the company is set up there, and then based on that, that's where they do the strategy. That broader one have the vision, and so to support the mission, they will say this is what we're going to do. So they have a portfolio manager at the top. Based on that portfolio the company set to do, they will have programs that make up that portfolio. It's from those programs you will have projects. So the projects that are done there, which project managers will manage, what they're doing there support the overall, right? So if you are doing a project, it's not just stand alone. And this is what I was Tom often talk about this is the program budget. Because if right now we are funding, okay, this money is for this ministry, this money is for this ministry. But if you look at what is the program that this money is funding, so if you think of the budget from a program perspective, meaning take for instance the arrest agenda. So the arrest agenda is you make your vision up there, your portfolio. Then there are different things that's going to support the arrest agenda. So you fund those programs and not the individual ministries. If you send money, now they have something called, they used to have the county development fund, which is just based on giving the money to the county. But if there is a project or if there's a program that you are funding, so that people from different areas, whether you are in agriculture, that idea, that program is the one we are funding. And so whether the program is successful, now we are able to see it, monitor it, evaluate it, and hold people accountable. But for now, we're just throwing money at ministries.
Yeah.
And that approach is something that can also be changed so that it becomes programmatic instead of these line items. Gentlemen, thank you for tonight. This is just part one of the discussion on the budget. We're going to continue, hopefully, on Saturday morning, where we're going to take a deeper dive into our national budget. Keep tuned to Focus on Liberia, where we educate, we elevate, and promote all things Liberia. Until then, we close with a song that says, whether you believe, you are doing your happy dance for the budget, or you are skeptical, we are all Liberians. Have a good night and God bless.
We are Liberia. Liberia is our